I want you to imagine a city. A city that, by pretty much every measure, was the most intellectually advanced place on the entire planet. A city whose rulers sent out messengers not for gold or taxes, but for books. Well, that city was real. It was 8th century Baghdad, right at the heart of the Islamic Golden Age.
That quote really sets the stage. We're talking about Baghdad between the 8th and 10th centuries, and at its core was this legendary institution called Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. You can think of it as an academy, a library, and a massive translation center all rolled into one. And believe me, it would literally change the course of human history.
So let's really get into it. For a shining moment in time, Baghdad truly was the world's library.
Inside these walls, something absolutely remarkable was going on. You had Muslim, Christian, and Jewish scholars all working side by side. Their mission? To translate the great works of the Greeks, of ancient India, of Persia, saving all this priceless knowledge from just being lost to time. And their work affects you and me directly, right now. The algebra you struggled with in high school? Yeah, it gets its name from a book written right here. So many stars in the night sky still have Arabic names because of the astronomers who worked in Baghdad. This wasn't just a building with books, it was an engine of innovation.
So how did this all happen? I mean, was it just some happy accident? Not at all. It was a very deliberate, very strategic decision made by the rulers of the Abbasid Caliphate. They saw knowledge as a resource, something as valuable as gold, and they decided to import it from everywhere they possibly could.
They kicked off this massive, state-sponsored effort. We're talking about official delegations sent to the Byzantine Empire just to buy up old Greek manuscripts. Scholars were invited from India to come and share their revolutionary ideas about mathematics. Persian wisdom, literature, science, it was all translated and absorbed into this incredible intellectual melting pot.
And get this, the Caliph, a guy named Al-Mamun, came up with one of the greatest incentives in the history of, well, history. The story goes that he would pay translators the weight of their finished books in solid gold. Just imagine that for a second. The signal was crystal clear. Here, in Baghdad, knowledge was the ultimate currency.
You know, the entire project was built on this really powerful premise that knowledge just transcends faith. It doesn't have a religion. In fact, many of the most important translators were Christian Arabs, and they brought this long tradition of translating Greek texts into the whole effort. It was a collaboration that crossed pretty much every cultural and religious line you can think of.
Okay, so when you create an environment like this, you are going to attract some serious brain power. So let's meet a few of the geniuses who were part of a culture that actually funded and celebrated the hunt for knowledge.
First up, a name that might sound kind of familiar, Al-Khwarizmi. He was a Persian scholar, and he became one of the most influential mathematicians of all time. No exaggeration.
His book, Kitab al-Jabr, is where we get the word algebra, and a Latin version of his name, Al-Khwarizmi, that's where we get the word algorithm. I'm serious, every single time you use a computer, you are using a concept named after this guy. He is for sure the father of algebra.
And then you add Al-Biruni. If there ever was a true polymath, a person who just knows a ton about a ton of different things, it was him. He seemed to master every field of study he touched.
He wrote foundational texts on everything from physics to pharmacology. In the 11th century, think about this, he calculated the circumference of the Earth and was accurate to within 1% of the actual value. It's just astounding. And as a true testament to his curiosity, he spent years in India and learned Sanskrit just so he could engage directly with Hindu philosophy.
Okay, finally, let's meet Ibn al-Haytham. He is, and I'm putting this simply, one of the most important figures in the history of science. Sometimes people call him the first true scientist.
So why is that? Because centuries, literally centuries, before guys like Francis Bacon or René Descartes in Europe, Ibn al-Haytham was developing and using the scientific method. You make a hypothesis, you run experiments, and you verify your results. His book of optics completely changed how we understand light and vision, and it influenced scientists for generations, including Leonardo da Vinci himself.
But all golden ages have to end. In the year 1258, a catastrophe hit Baghdad. And while the physical House of Wisdom was completely destroyed, its most important creation, its ideas, somehow managed to escape.
When the Mongols sacked Baghdad, the destruction was absolute. The House of Wisdom was burned to the ground. Chroniclers who were there at the time wrote that so many priceless manuscripts were thrown into the Tigris River that the water literally ran black with ink. It was an unthinkable, heartbreaking loss.
But here's the beautiful part of the story. The knowledge wasn't just stuck in that one building. It had already spread. This is the chain of transmission. You start with ancient Greek knowledge, which was then translated into Arabic in Baghdad. Then, in places like Toledo, Spain, those Arabic texts were translated again, this time into Latin. And from there, they just poured into Europe, helping to fuel the Renaissance and the scientific revolution.
So why does this story from over 1,000 years ago matter right now? Well, because the legacy of the House of Wisdom isn't just a history lesson. It's a powerful message for our own time.
There's this common story that the medieval Islamic world was somehow intellectually stagnant, a kind of dark age. That narrative is completely, demonstrably false. The House of Wisdom is the ultimate refutation of that idea. For 300 years, Baghdad was the world's intellectual capital for one simple reason. Its culture valued curiosity over orthodoxy.
What made the whole thing possible was the core belief that knowledge is valuable, no matter where it comes from, whether it's from the Greeks, the Indians, or the Persians. So it kind of makes you ask a question for our time, right? In a world that seems to be building so many new walls, what walls are we willing to cross for knowledge today?
The physical library was destroyed. The river did run black with ink. But the ideas had already escaped. They've been translated, shared, and built upon, becoming a permanent part of our shared human inheritance. And now you know.